Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today on Face Off I asked the question, Jon Pertwee's time on Doctor Who is often well remembered and well regarded. But the question part, but which of his highly regarded 5 seasons would you say is the weakest? Because I think the Pertwee era is phenomenal, one of the best eras the show has ever done. And I think all of his seasons are good. I don't think Jon Pertwee has a bad season. But with that in mind, which of his 5 seasons in the role do you think is the weakest? And I was staggered by the poll results. I did not expect one season to really take up the chunk of the votes. Or if I did expect one season, this isn't the one I expected. 61%, well over half, picked season 9 as the weakest. I was not expecting that. Second place was season 11 with only 17%, which was the one I was expecting because I'd always heard that from a lot of people, especially before I had seen most of that season, which I have now. I had always been told season 11 is its weakest, season 11 is its weakest. I'd heard that all over the place. I didn't think I necessarily agreed with it either now that I've seen more of season 11. And I think it's phenomenal. The only story I haven't seen is the Peladon. I haven't seen Peladon in season 11 yet, Monster of Peladon. And the weakest to me is probably Planet of the Spiders, and it's still good. I think Time Warrior is great. I think Invasion of the Dinosaurs is great. I think Death to the Daleks is highly underrated and great. But it seems people agreed with me on that part. In season 9, 61% of the vote. Season 7 had 8%, season 8 had 8%, and season 10 only had 6%. And I'm not surprised that those are low, because seasons 7, 8, and 10 are usually held in pretty high regard, so that doesn't surprise me. But just to see season 9, with 61%, it was overwhelmingly the season people thought was the weakest, though not necessarily bad. Let's have a look what you had to say. Actually, before I'll talk about what I have to say, it's hard for me to judge because I haven't seen all of season 9, and the 2 I haven't seen are, I think, what pulls the season down. I've never seen The Mutants, but I hear it's not that great. And I wasn't able to finish The Time Monster, which is pretty telling about The Time Monster. I watched either the first episode or the first 2 episodes, I forget, and I just couldn't get all the way through it at the time. I'd been watching a lot of Doctor Who at the time. Some of that could have just been burnout, needing a break. So that's pretty telling that I couldn't finish it though. But I do very much love Day of the Daleks. I really enjoy Curse of Peladon, and I love the Sea Devils. So those aspects of the season are strong. So I'm going to wait till I see all of season 9 before I really definitively say which one I think is the weakest. Now, Colin Coney, who is one of my top tier patrons, says, I went for season 9, but I was torn between that and seasons 10 and 11. In the end, it was straightforward. 9 as Curse of Peladon. I like Curse of Peladon. The Mutants and the Time Monster. 10 as Frontier in Space and Green Death overrated. I disagree. I love Green Death. Although I like Frontier in Space, but I don't like the very rushed ending because it has to tie in with Planet. And 11 has its high points, but Planet of the Spiders is underwhelming. I agree. So easy choice for me. The Auton stories are great. People love Inferno. Yes. Delgado is awesome. Yes. Silurians is a great concept, and so on. Pixel Johnson says, for me, it's definitely season 9. Season 11 is kind of close, but I do really enjoy Death to the Daleks and Planet of the Spiders. It also introduced the Sontarans, so I don't think season 11 really deserves to be called his weakest. It isn't great, but still enjoyable. Season 9 is as well, but to me it just doesn't really have much that was interesting enough. Day of the Daleks, a very inaccurate title as it really was the Daleks' Day. The special edition really does help the story, but in my eyes it is a bit unfair to add that in. I disagree, because most of the people who make these stories, they couldn't realize them as much as they wanted to because of budget constraints. You know, a lot of times if you hear the people who made Classic Who talking behind the scenes, they wish they could have done more. Barry Letts was always frustrated with how Invasion of the Dinosaurs turned out. And he's talked in other stories about, the Time Monster. He didn't like the building blowing up at the end. I think it was of the Time Monster. that he really wished had looked better. So I think special editions are just an opportunity to make it closer to the original vision the producers and directors had for the story. Curse of Peladon is a decent installment, which brought back the Ice Warrior, so it's okay with me. As for the Sea Devils, I didn't really care for the story that much. It's mainly just okay for me, but nothing too special, especially compared to Doctor Who and the Silurians. The Mutants. It's the Mutants. Then the Time Monster, which I haven't seen yet, so I won't say anything on that front. But yeah, Season 9 to me is the weakest Pertwee season. It's not completely terrible, but it's definitely not the same as Season 7 or Season 10 in my eyes. Paul Bailey, a fellow Who-tuber, says, I would have to say Season 9 for me. As for me, it's only great the Sea Devils that stands out to me, as it's the only one I rewatch a lot. Day of the Daleks, I have to say, doesn't stand out, but the special edition does. And for me, the special edition is the definitive edition. Usually when I talk about Day of the Daleks being awesome, I'm referring to the special edition. Curse of Peladon stands out for me as it's my second favorite story of the season. The Mutants I can't get through as it doesn't pull me into the story like some other Pertwee stories. The Time Monster, I really enjoyed this story, and I love the Master a lot more than in Season 8, and it makes so many levels for me. So I have to say, the Sea Devils is definitely the strongest story of the season. The Mutants is the weakest. Sid Hill Bruiser Music says, I chose Season 11, but it could have easily been Season 9. Both seasons have problems. Shamrock Particle says, there are some who claim Pertwee was bored during Season 11, but it has more memorable and creative stories than 9. So sit right back while I tell a tale of 6 stories. Yes, I know there are 5, fortunately. 9 may have Day of the Daleks, a classic, and the Time Monster. Second half is important, but the Mutants is a bland snooze fest. It's a pile of wooey. Sea Devils is a pointless retread of Silurians that shows how a single fencing scene can't save the 6-pack puddle muck from itself. I love Sea Devils myself. I actually think it's paced better than Silurians, although Silurians is a better ending. Curse of Peladon manages to be slightly less hokey, but without it there'd be no Monster of Peladon that I prefer. And yep, monsters share some of the same plot points, beats, but still qualifies as partial retread. But that's far better than lines like, I'm Princess Jo from the planet TARDIS. Fat Eye Corey says, Season 9, I think it's the Time Monster and the Mutants really bog it down. Okay, Claws and Colony isn't great, but one is a 4-parter, the other is the first time in some stories that the Doctor leaves Earth. Season 9 was obviously a shift in tone from the Quartermass meets James Bond. It's a lot more lighthearted. On a personal level, I love Day and Sea, Curse and Mutants. I love Day and Sea, Curse and Mutants I need to rewatch. Season 11 maybe, but it's obviously the black sheep. No Master, Sarah Jane, new title sequence. Happy Man 50 says, what's between 9 and 11 for me? Seems to be a common trend. I chose 11 as it has 2 stories I like against 3 I like in Season 9. In Season 11, I do not like Death to the Daleks. I love Death to the Daleks. Or Monsters of Peladon, and is just okay for dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. The story of dinosaurs. In Season 9, I dislike Mutants and is okay for Time Monster. Henry Andrews says, I think Season 9 is his weakest. The others have some of the best Pertwee stories, especially Season 8. And I definitely read it right this time. Unknown Don't Trust Numbers, who just sent me Doctor Who and The Last Adventure recently, the audio I've been wanting to listen to, so I really appreciate that from him. He says, Season 9 for me, easily. Alice Collins, another one of my higher-end patron supporters, and I very much appreciate her continued support. She says, Season 10 for me, to be honest. What? So 3 Doctors was all right. Of course, I mean, if by all right you mean, best multi-Doctor story ever, then yeah, it's all right. Carnival of Monsters was great. Yes, it is. Frontier in Space and Planet of the Daleks are meh. See, I agree with Planet of the Daleks. Planet of the Daleks is one of my least favorite Pertwee stories, and is easily my least favorite of his Dalek stories. I don't get into it. Frontier in Space I like, although there is a kind of a lot of them captured, getting free, captured, getting free, captured, getting free. But I like it, but I don't like the rushed ending, because it's very fast and Deus Machina, because it has to lead into Planet of the Daleks. Plus, I just wish we'd had a better final scene with Delgado. It's not really their fault. They didn't know he was going to pass away, but I wish we had a better final scene with Delgado. But loved Green Death. Sam, loved Green Death. A lot of people say season 9. I would argue that that's my favorite of his. What? As it has Curse of Peladon, which is good. Sea Devils, which is good. Mutants, I've never seen. I'm looking forward to that. Back to back. Not much of a fan of Time Monster, however. Day of the Daleks is alright, but not my favorite. I have to ask Alan, why am I saying that? I have to ask Alice if you've seen the special edition of Day of the Daleks with the enhanced effects. I'm curious if you've seen it, and if you have, what you think of the enhanced effects, because I really think they tighten that story up. They make the execution of the story live up to the actual story, in my opinion. I'm curious what you think of the special edition of it. It says toss-up between seasons 9 and 11, a common trend here. I think 9 is my least favorite, though, even though the Sea Devils is one of my favorite comfort stories of Pertwee's. The rest I'm not that fussed about, although I do enjoy the Mutants more than most people seem to. Day of the Daleks, 5 out of 10. Curse of Peladon, 4 out of 10. Sea Devils, 9 out of 10. Mutants, 7 out of 10. Time Monster, 5 out of 10. Whereas for season 11, he said, Time Warrior, 9 out of 10. Robert Holmes, baby. Dinosaurs, 6 out of 10. Death to the Daleks, 7 out of 10. Monsters of Peladon, 2 out of 10. Planet of the Spiders, 6 out of 10. I don't have, LOZ Howard 1 says, I don't have the heart to put any of his seasons as weakest, which is fair. He has such a good era. Aside from Spearhead, for me, his first season was a little less enjoyable, but having said that, I adore the early 70s feel of the stories and love Liz Shaw, so can't put it at the bottom. So sorry, I refuse to give an opinion, it's so hard. And that's fair. I think most of us would agree that he doesn't have any bad seasons. The Pertwee era is one of the strongest in the show. I mean, if you go by a whole Doctor's tenure, there's an argument to be made that he has the strongest era of the whole show. I mean, there's hardly any misses, I think, in his era. Cody 1, who's also a fellow YouTuber, says, bloody hell, I'm actually in accordance with fandom for once. LOL. Makes a change. Season 9 is by far the weakest. Day is awesome, but the rest veer from worthy but dull to stupid and dull. Told him, I like Sea Devils. He goes, I find it dull, personally. Mikey Elliott says, in season 9, I only have one I love, and that's Sea Devils, but the rest are boring and uninteresting. Lee Carroll says, it's tough, as all of his seasons are at least mostly good, but Time Monster is the weakest story. Mutants is pretty average, so definitely season 9. Bobby Frackle, another one of my regulars on here, says 11 all day and all night. Easy one, that. And Ryan Carrick says, season 9 is very weak in my opinion. A few of the Pertwee stories feel way too long to me, even worse than 60 stories, but season 9 has the worst pacing. Curse of Peladon is really good. I don't get the hype for Day of the Daleks. Go watch the special edition. It's really, really good. Really turns that story around. I like Sea Devils, but it's way too long, and the Mutants and Time Monsters are weak stories and far too long. Let's see. And I even commented and said, special edition with updated effects is amazing. To which he replied, I do like it, but I really don't understand the hype. I far prefer Planet Death and Planet. Day is actually my favorite of the three. We'll get into that, or by the time y'all see this, I've probably already reviewed that poll, because we did a poll voting on which one of those is the best and the weakest and all that fun stuff. So that's what everybody had to say. And there's a pretty clear common denominator here, and that's people picking between 9 and 11. And you see that a lot in the comments. I have to pick between 9 and 11. Those seems to be his two weakest, with 9 winning out seemingly in the comments and in the poll. And I'm looking forward to the season 9 box set coming. At the time I'm recording this, it hasn't been announced which one's coming after season 2 yet. I strongly suspect it's season 9. I hope I'm right. And we'll see. So, if you've enjoyed this video, go ahead and click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications, because that helps me out. I also have a Patreon. That's how I help pay the bills. So if you want to help me out with that, there's a link to that down in the description below. Anyone that joins at any tier level gets a free video request. I want to give a shout out to Colin Coney and Stephen Crane. I appreciate their continued support as I do the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review. I will be getting to that Doctor Who The Last Adventure, which by the time you guys see this, I've probably already started on it. I'm really looking forward to getting to that. Unknown Don't Trust Numbers sent me that. I also have a link to my Amazon wish list and my Amazon UK wish list down there as well. Most importantly though, thank you.